Hello and welcome everyone to This Week in Hospitality Marketing, show number 406. I am your host, Loren Gray, and welcome to the wonderful city of Amstelveen in Holland, Netherlands. Um, we're just south of Amsterdam. Last week, our live show was from Haarlem, which was a little bit farther south of us, so we're a little bit closer to Amsterdam. But we wanted to make sure, and pardon the background noise of this, we're actually trying to do this in the quietest corner of where we're staying, which is City Den, which is really an interesting chain of properties, variety. One thing noticing in Europe is that brands have a unique, different perspective as to value proposition and also frequency. We're so often in the States, we're very familiar with the big brands, and that we tend to equate density of those brands, brand saturation, in almost every market that we travel to. Here in Europe, particularly Netherlands here, as we travel, that density of brand places are not as frequent. There are other brands, and of course, a lot of independent properties as well, in collusion with all of that. And some are in soft branding affiliation and stuff. But anyway, for the travel, that just give you a sense of reference points as to where we are and the explanation of the noisy background music for the quietest corner to be found. My name is Loren Gray. I'm your host. The topic today is kind of, as the past couple of shows have been, inspirational to my traveling adventures as we spend several weeks, couple of months and more here traveling abroad in the Netherlands and Belgium and so forth, and just aspects of our discussions. And so today's topic, to really be finite to this, is how storylines can refine targeting. And this came inspirationally from two components of this. As we travel, as I'm traveling right now, we're going to different locations. There is the static what you do as a tourist in a market. The tourist destinations, the things that tourists are most interested in seeing in your destination. And those are easy pickings, low hanging fruit if you're looking at that within a marketing strategy of adding it into including aspects of what you are in relationship to those destination interests for tourists and so forth. But given the diversity of places that we're going to, and the fact that we have the privilege of staying longer than a traditional uh, traveler, tourist would be in a market, some people, their only experience of the Netherlands, for instance, is more specifically something like Amsterdam, which is wonderful and it's an amazing place to visit, and I highly recommend it. But the real reality of it is that that is just a fractional aspect of the country itself. Now, it's a smaller country, and of course, in the United States, we have even greater diversity to things. But the value of travel tourism interest based on just tourist specific interest is a very narrow cast. It's a highly productive but very narrow cast. So my idea of the topic of today, talking about storylines and how they directly affect your marketing strategy, is that there are different ways that people perceive their interests in their travel. And it brought back an older discussion with me when it came to social media. Many years ago, I began talking of the process of exactly how do you do social media. It's just not randomized posting, and it's not just about one core component. We talked many times about the fact that if you turned over your social media platforms to a department within your hotel, that skewed data that they'd be providing, say for instance banquets, where most all your postings on your Facebook page for your business was about your last wedding you had, or pictures of weddings that are there, or things that you do for weddings, and very little content would be shared about other contact topics, because basically the department that's sharing the content is very specific as to what they are sharing. That goes to storylines. If all you're doing is highlighting the low hanging fruit of topical interest of destination information as it relates to tourists, and case in particular for me here is things like the hop on hop off bus, or the river, the canal tours on boats, the tourist things you do. You run and you go, that way you can see the most with the least amount of time. You don't really get to spend a large product time with the particular things as it is much. You just get peppered exposure to it. Think of it as New York with the hop on hop off buses, the tour buses. They drive you around. You get a glimpse of the Freedom Tower. You get a glimpse of the Statue of Liberty, Staten Ferry, Broadway, Times Square, and other notable features, MoMA or whatever. But you never really get to actually enjoy those things. Now, if you get to spend more time and have the time to spend, and you go off and look at those things of your particular interest, which is where we're getting to the storyline conversation of today's topic. And that is, what drives people's interest is what you need to create content for. Now, going back to what we used to do with social media, the social media component of this was based on the idea that you have several storylines running at once. So it's just not topically whatever pops in your head, or, oh, it's January 5th, we should talk about New Year's stuff. This is about storylines like what's off the beaten path. People that like visiting your destination because of the variety of food offerings that are there, or cultural food that's there. Cultural, the aspect of what your culture may be, if especially in international travel, it's even more pronounced. Soft adventure, things that you can get to do, from the bungee jumpings to whether there's skydiving, or whether there's Chicago's tower where you lean out over the glass, or New York has theirs too now. Those kind of soft adventures, family adventures, what families would do if in their destination. Off the beat, those are some of the storylines. Sorry, I'm missing a couple in my head, but those are the storylines to it. The background noises distracting me as well. Sorry. So these storylines are key elements to the wonderful world we are now in being able to generate content. So a marketing strategy is this. If you are representing aspects of your destination and you have high value to a lot of those components to this, also look at the variations of what you have that might be more useful as well. Become more of an authority on some things. Now, historically, as we've always mentioned, content development is always challenging because of its time consumption. Yes, you know what's in your market, and yes, you could probably write towards it, but it's arduous. It's time consuming. Others have done it. It's easier to copy what they've done, or take pieces from them and Frankenstein them together for you. And of course, there's the whole component of SEO optimization for it. That is a task and skill into itself to do. And from all of that comes the need to say, well, I just don't have the time. Certainly not to create 4 or 5 different storylines, and certainly not the ability to create varieties of content for each of those storylines. But now, in our world of technology and tools that are available to us, we have the ability with AI to do exactly that and have it very good in the writing. Now, there's caveats to all of this. Anybody that loves hearing the gadgetry, wizardry of the buzzword of AI is like, oh, that's great. We should go do that. Let's go find it out. And then you get a quick rude awakening that you really don't know what to do with it. You don't know how to create those magical prompts that everybody keeps pitching you as you should do. Oh, this is a prompt for you to do. And I'm not here to teach you the prompts on today's show. There is a process to it. It's not as hard as some people think it is. It in itself is time consuming, but once done, it's done that you can continually use. Once you define what you want to always use the AI functionality platform that you choose to do based on its focus and priority, then you get to use it like a tool every time. Once you've built the tool, the template can be used and just topically changes to what you want it to create for you. And what I mean by this, not to get existential of it, is that when you create a prompt, you create the tonality, the authoritativeness of it. You actually define it in a nice little spreadsheet as to all the categorizations that you need to answer for this prompt to make it sound the way you want it to sound as you give it the topic you want it to write about. Where this all comes into marketing, you need to evaluate the storylines that you know represent your market. Let's say, talk about a contrasting one. Say, for instance, you're a mountain resort. You have 2 storylines that are very prominent: winter events, activities, and interest in your market, and non-winter interest and activities in your market. That same ski slope is now a bike slope. Those same trails are now, three-wheeler trails are now walking trails, or vice versa. They have the ability to talk to people that want to do that. Obviously, people physically not able to do it are less interested in those components. They might be more interested into the scenic vistas and views. And based upon your inventory of the hotel, that's what you feature about the uniqueness of why it is worth them staying. So that means that the marketing that you're doing for them is filtered and targeted to the categorization of their interest. Now, it would be rude and stereotypical to say that you have age thresholds to this. It's a helpful filter because it does probably have applicability to it. Older people are less physically engaged as much as younger people would be of doing things at 65 or 70, okay, or 55 even. And of course, you can look at the reverse of it, that young people don't necessarily always have restricted incomes and so forth. You can go back and forth all day, but there are some things based on interest, storyline interest, that if you engage them into a storyline with your social media, you talk about soft adventures, or you talk about scenic vistas and relaxing spas and your spa services and things like, and great dining in your market, based upon the engagements of that content, gives you a custom audience. So let's just go through steps and process. You define storylines. Let's say soft adventure. Let's say off the beaten path. Let's say family adventure. Let's say culinary, food adventures and so forth. And you create these storylines, and you see first, according to your schedule, is there anything that is applicable that we can apply this to? Is there anything coming up in the timeline horizon that any of these things can be used for? We then also look at our historical engagement traffic. What are people looking at historically, times past, with us? What pages were they looking at? What content had engagement? That not only goes for our website content, but for our social media content. Okay. And our ad campaigns, what our ad campaigns were featuring, what kind of engagement we get. So we have a sense of what drives people's interest to our market. We categorize those storylines, that we have these storylines we just mentioned. And so now we create a timeline. When did we see people engaging with us about their interests in our market, chronologically, historically, so that then we can refer to that as a starting point of creating the story. And so we say, okay, we're looking at the fact that, and we'll make an easy selection. There's a seasonal event that's coming up. And it comes out now 3 months from now. And we noticed about now people begin to be in searching for information about this event, or that we see traffic related to this event from a trend. You can do that in Google Trends if you want to. It's a really neat tool. It's a free tool, but it's a nice one to be able to give it like a stick in the sand starting to look at it. So then you decide you're going to take these storylines, and you're going to take the content that either you have used, or know that is in market, that is available for you to access, and you're going to craft content that you're going to share on social media. Now, you can do this from your own personal first-person interest to this, or you can craft using AI to write content for you in the context that you wanted, in the voice that you want, the tone that you wanted, by simply asking. You can be blunt up. You can go to ChatGPT and, hey, write me a 500-word blog on the XYZ event and why people should attend. Something as blunt as that. Or you can be much more specific and say, I want first-person possessive, humorous, but authoritative, speaking about the things to prepare for 3 months out from XYZ event that should be of interest for people to know, the 5 things that they should know about up before the event. And then it can create a much more crafted content piece. And you take that and you find rich media that is associated with it, or if you have to make rich media for it, most likely you have rich media for it. And you then see whether or not it's best for your efforts to make you the authority of this content, or is other platforms already the authority of these contents, and you can literally ride their coattails by collaborating and giving anchor text links, okay, to their content in combination with the content that you're sharing. So you take this content, make it, put it on social, augment it with rich media, maybe create some anchor text that links out to other content that has much more in depth, or if you're taking your extra time, create your own content that you put on your own site. If you have your own pages about events like this, if it's a big enough event, it probably is warranted you to make content for it in times past. And if not, great chance to do it, because you're going to need that landing page for your paid ad campaigns that you're going to focus and point them to that page. And your storyline starts pretty much watching and listening where and who these conversations are happening on social media, and listening to what people are asking, see what they're responding, see what's being shared by them, hear the sentiment of it, and realize that your first conversation, or any engagement from the preliminary point of view, your inception, isn't about what you can sell them, as it is how can you contribute to what they're interested in. How can you answer questions from listening first? So your storyline gets created. You see where people are going. You say, hey, noticing that people are commenting about such and such. Here's some great tools that we had on our site about things to do in preparation, the 5 things you need to do 3 months ahead of the event to do such and such. And one of them is buying a room from you, okay? 5 of them are about the preparations and the transportation details and ticket prices or whatever it is, and links that are helpful to get all those things. And that's the starting point. Then as people engage with what you've shared, you can share that you have additional content on your website. Well, we have that. We also have this other stuff. We have a nice downloadable map, or we have a great thing that was written by our fellow guests of things that they learned what they want to do next time when they're here, or whatever the content type is. If you have none of this, then this is where AI can still augment your content, because you can ask AI to look into ways of sharing the types of contents once you define the content you want to share. And this is going on in social. This is really where you're starting. First, you're going to plant it organically and add it to the content that you're looking at on social, the places that people are talking about this event in particular. You're going to try to have organic content to your landing page of your website, if this event is warranted to make all these efforts. You're also beginning to create that from that engagement, a desired need to create ad campaigns that are tailored to those that are engaging with your organic social. You also need to look at, from all of the past engagements that you've had, if there's any means of previous ad campaigns that you can create a custom audience from the engagement. If there's enough engagement with your ads for when last time you did this, that you can create a custom audience to target in your campaigns this year. Or are you generating a good enough audience engagement through what you're sharing and what they're driving as traffic to your page, that you're creating a custom audience from that engagement of the landing page you created? And from that, you create a starting point. You're not just going to begin to have ads show up just to those people that engaged with your organic content. You're going to use that as a template to create a lookalike audience that expands that more, and then you redefine that lookalike audience into more specific feeder markets that you know historically from your PMS that people came from to come to your destination for this event. First stage is you begin your paid social targeted to what you've been sharing organically, to the audiences that are engaged with it as a custom audience base, to the audiences that are lookalike audiences of that custom base within Facebook, with the parameters of the feeder markets and the areas that you feel would be most interested in taking advantage of what you eventually will be offering them as something to purchase, a stay in accommodation with you perhaps. Up to this point, it's a pretty much rudimentary, where this is what you would do most of the time for most things. The content generation from AI is just a nice warm inclusion to that. Now you begin to, as you get closer to the actual event timing itself, and you know that people are looking more not just out of casual interest or discovery, but they're now trying to educate themselves on the decision, the information that they need to make a decision to purchase or not. And so from that, that's when your paid campaigns begin to kick in, which are now probably with enough audience engagement for your social and with enough engagement with your content to your website that you can create these custom audiences, that you now can create the paid campaigns and generate a consumer engagement funnel. Here's the ads for what you're offering for what's going on from the audiences that were created. From that, you then begin to refine farther the fact that as they engage with the additional information that you're offering through the ads, where you have augmented more content about the event and what you offer with the event, your rates, your booking links, your things that you can add to the value propositions or whatever it is, then the ads will trigger the next step, which is if they didn't go through the funnel and they did cart abandonment to booking with you, they went to your site, they engaged with what you're through the ad, they looked at your content, they may have looked at availability, they may have looked at rates, whatever it is, but they didn't finish the transaction. You're creating now a very good defined audience that you have a defined parameter of beginning and ends for, because now this audience is what you use to target retargeting with. Where are they from? What did they look at in particular? What did they engage with? This is where GA4 custom dimensions, data dimensions are very helpful, because it's just not where you set goals and insights from the old UA system, where if you didn't define it, you didn't track it. Here, it's tracked. You just need to define what you want to know about it. Inversion process. So now you can begin asking questions of, okay, so these people almost bought. What else did they do? What did they go to? And this is where the storylines come back into play. What your retargeting content is going to be used for is, why were they interested? You initiated engagement and they responded to the engagement out of this particular event, but the event is multi-spectrum. There are those that are coming just for the event. There are those that are coming as the event is the excuse of them coming because they have other interests in things like, while we're there, I love going to the following restaurants because they're interested in their engagement with your culinary information, or that they found it because of your targeting of that storyline of restaurant adventures in while you're in town, kind of thing. It may be that they were looking at your family programs, like, okay, there's rates and offers. Well, how family friendly is it? Is there family things to do? And if they looked at content with it, that creates another separate audience. And you follow each of these storyline audiences based on their content interest. So now when you reconnect with them or attempt to reconnect or retarget them in advertising, you've added these dynamic fields into ads that have the same words, the reference to the context of the storyline that they engaged with, or the fact that they searched for content while they were looking at what you're looking at your original core content. And you begin to amplify their interest because it resonates with them, because that was a part of their interest process. And this accelerates their education process. And fun enough, other AIs can create very good dynamic ads. We talked a lot about that in the podcast last week, excuse me, 2 weeks ago, where we were talking about the creation of the dynamic ads within Google. The algorithm always misses me when I'm thinking of it. Looking for it now in my old podcast notes. But the dynamic ads that Google offers, RSA ads, God, it was right there in my head. Creating RSA ads. Well, there's programs, we talk about a tool on our podcast talking about PPC ad editor that creates these RSA ads that are custom tailored to your highest performing ads. So if they're engagement ads and you've added and augmented the content associated with the storyline that they included in their search and discovery process with you, it can create dynamic RSA ads that are even higher in performance because they're tailored to the success of the metrics of the campaigns you're currently running, and they're using that success matrix in addition to the dynamic ad creation content that they have the capability of. And AI can help you create, like the tool I was referring to in the podcast, PPC ad editor, help you create these variations of RSA ads that amplify this. Now, the benefit of all this is that you're not sitting there scratching saying, I got to make 10 variations here. Okay, we'll change this phraseology, we'll change this sequence, we'll change this, the description headline with the same character limitations. You don't have to do that. AI tools, tailored AI tools, can do that for you. And for that reason, this whole process we're talking about storylines has a higher and higher value, because all that is it's allowing the interest to funnel into the categorization that is the depth of the person's interest. Like I said, this came from me from the idea of, as I'm traveling, I run across so many different people now that are here for different reasons. And I'm not talking about whether it's for work or for pleasure, but the more fractional interests of this is my 5th time here, 10th time here, and I'm really looking for, very unique certain restaurants or certain little historical things. I say this when we were in Harlem, and I found out that it's actually across the whole country. In respect to the Holocaust and the tragedies of the Holocaust, as they begin to identify more and more of those that were lost in the concentration camps, and they find out the origin of where they came from, we're walking along the streets of Harlem when we first discovered these gold tiles. Sometimes just one, sometimes there's 2, 3, or 4 or more. And what caught our eye on the first ones was that there's little stones around it. We found out that, it's a Jewish custom about putting stones on graves, is that the gold tiles, and for lack of a better translation, they're tripping tiles. They're supposed to get your attention. The tile had a person's name, their birth, and their unfortunate passing, and where they passed. Sometimes Auschwitz and places like that. Sometimes they died there. And the tiles are a commemorance to say that this is where this family was. And I found that very powerful. What made it more powerful was I came across a person that it was like I was looking at some tiles, and they came up and they started telling me all this. And I said, well, that's amazing. And I looked up more and so forth and so on. And they actually came on a trip as a memoriam trip. They wanted to take the time to find these tiles. And of course, they had lists of them and places to look for them. So to take the time to respect that. Where do you target that? Who would target that? Are you targeting a market of one? Sure, you might be. You might be targeting a market of millions. Who's to know? The idea, though, is that we all have our motivations for travel and those kind of things, and finding that out and seeing how granular the motivations for travel are. One of the things we enjoy when we come over here is Indonesian restaurants because of the affiliation with Dutch culture and the East Asian and Indonesia and so forth, and the food culture that got transferred over from the colony period at that time. The food is phenomenal, and as much as I cook it at home and try to cook it, I am by no means good at it. In any comparison to being in a restaurant here, and certainly not as much as if I were to be able to go to Indonesia and enjoy it there. But it's a joy to find such a diversity of those restaurants here. It's an aspect of my travels that I enjoy. It's an aspect of my search experience that I do and my travels here. Before we go to wherever we're going to next or where we've been, where we're at, I look for what options we have for that particular food. I know I'm not alone for that because there's so many other cultures that are represented here. In Brussels, in particular, when we were there, they pride themselves, as we mentioned in the live show while we were there, that it's a dual language culture, and that a third of their population is non-native. The diversification of the cultures that are there, cultures that we don't consider prime interest culture, the Moroccan culture, the Libyan culture, just cultures, but they're different, they're unique. And you may say that it's just collectively one, that's stereotypical of things. There's a granularity of variance to that. And appreciating that and realizing that you can go by these very small restaurants that are food styles that you've never had before. You can tell I'm a little excited about this. The idea that culinary adventure for me, the discovery, like so many restaurants I'd go by and be like, I have no idea what kind of food that is. And of course, it doesn't help the menus are in Flemish or Dutch or French, so I have to be translating them and everything else. But to understand what they are, unless you actually go there. So there's the adventuresome, we're going to try it. If we don't like it, well, at least we tried it. Or now I'm aware of what I want, and that sounds really cool, and I want to do that. These fractional interests, these fractional storylines as to why people travel, fractional interests as to what you can educate them about. It's not about talking about the most discounted restaurant around your corner. It's not talking about the ease always about getting to these restaurants. I remember our Vancouver client that there was some amazing restaurants within walking distance. I shared this story in our live show 2 weeks ago of, where we hyperlapsed the video for Rich Media to show them just how conveniently close this restaurant was without having to make them watch a 5-minute video of us walking to the restaurant. But to get them to show how easy, left, right, boom, there it is, was a technique of Rich Media. But also, too, is keeping that content relevant. And again, the burden of content development is the burden of making content that you have to develop. And here are the AI programs that are available that are tailored to making specific content, optimized for SEO, optimized for understanding in the tonality of voice that you want for consistency, in the messaging type that it is a huge asset value tool in this process of storytelling. So that is my storytelling of today. Our topic was, of course, storytelling. Sorry, you might have made so many different notes. I lost what my total topic line was, but the idea of it was how storylines can refine targeting and how you can create this fragmentation of content, go through the process, the funnel, as it were, of early engagement, social usage, paid campaigns, targeted campaigning, targeted content development for organic values and referencing custom audiences and so forth. So hopefully the parade of all the granularity is helpful in your inspirations of marketing ideas and things that you may not have done, or basically, well, we don't do it that way anymore. Why don't we? Well, we just have changed over time, whatever. Kind of rekindling an old thought in a different format. So there you have it. Thank you so very much for watching us live today. If you're watching us on TV, Roku, Amazon, Apple, Google, or Samsung, or any of the smart TVs, just obviously you put in the hospitality channel, his TV channel that is in 209 countries. We are also simulcast if you're watching us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, or YouTube. We're simulcast on multiple pages on Facebook, Twitter, only one on LinkedIn, which is mine. That's why our limitation of LinkedIn is you can only produce it in one place. We're even on Twitch if you use your gaming console for media as well. And of course, we will always, after the show, we do a audio podcast, a little bit shorter than this one, that recaps tools and techniques, tools and using them for the techniques, and they usually are symbiotic to our content discussion. We're going to talk a little bit more today about tools that are related to storytelling and AI content development for storytelling. So it'll be a little bit more of a direct information for what the context of the show is. A couple little news items will get thrown in there as well, and a recap of the live show that we have here. So with that, my name is Loren Gray. I thank you for the privilege of your time. Thank you for your patience with my background noise as I try to be in the quietest corner of our place that we're staying in Amstelveen, Netherlands. And until next week, the 26th, I think it is, for show number 407, thank you for the privilege of your time. And I do truly look forward to talking to you next week.